If we back out now, it'll be the biggest mistake we've made, far worse than the Syrian red line, far worse than Afghanistan. You can't say, keep protesting, we got you back, help's on the way, and nothing happened. What I'm going to tell anybody that will listen in the Mideast, don't let this moment pass. Be smart, but don't be locked down with fear. And as to MBS and MBZ, knock it off, Saudi Arabia. Knock it off.
Do you believe this, and do you believe that President Trump should do what he said he would do?
Here's what I believe. They're the weakest they've been since 1979. It is a regime with American blood on its hand. It is a great disruptor of the region. It's a religious theocracy that if they could get a nuclear weapon, they would use it to advance their religious goals, which are three: purify Islam, destroy the Jewish state, and come after us. Hitler wrote a book. He wanted to kill all the Jews. Nobody believed him. I believe the Ayatollah and his regime, not the Iranian people, are religious fanatics, religious Nazis. Hitler wanted a master race. They want a master religion. So why do I mention that? There's no negotiating with these people, in my view. They're hell-bent on enacting an agenda based on religion that teaches them to lie, teaches them to destroy in the name of God. So President Trump said something that's going to be the best thing he ever said, or maybe the worst thing he ever said. When asked, what should the protesters do? Keep protesting. Now, that came from a man who genuinely believed that. That wasn't a calculated response. Ronald Reagan went to the Berlin Wall, and we still talk about it. He didn't say, do you mind lowering it? He said, tear it down. He was clear. He was concise. So President Trump gave an answer, keep protesting, help is on the way. And a couple of days later, he said, it's time for new leadership in Iran, because the Ayatollah and his crowd, they're bad guys, they're terrible guys. You put all three of those statements together, then what do you have? You have a president standing with the people. What do the people want? They want the oppression to end. They want to start over with a new Iran. So here's what I would say.
Are you backing regime change?
Yeah, totally. If you're not, you're crazy.
Military regime change.
Yeah. I'm backing the people who want a country they can live in without having their daughter killed because she.
But I'm trying to figure out, because there's a huge flotilla in the Arabian Sea that President Trump is using as a negotiating tactic. Yeah. He's just said, as you heard me say, that he would prefer negotiating.
I prefer negotiation too. Let me finish my thought.
Okay.
If we back out now, it'll be the biggest mistake we've made, far worse than the Syrian red line, far worse than Afghanistan. You can't say, keep protesting, we got you back, help's on the way, and nothing happened. That's why I am confident that President Trump will get an outcome consistent with those three statements through diplomacy or military force. Let me just say this. Any deal about Iran has to come to the Senate. I'm not going to bless a bad deal. They're not out in the street because of limiting the nuclear ambitions of the Ayatollah. They're out in the street because life is miserable. People can't have a decent quality life. They live in fear, and most Iranians have had it. They'd like a new start. The day after.
Okay.
Well, if the Ayatollah goes down, we'll work on the day after. I think we'll have a better chance of hanging friends with the protesters than the Ayatollah. Here's the day after I worry the most about. The day after we blinked. The day after we made promises that we didn't keep. We made assurances that fell short. That day after is generational damage. Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, they don't go away. They come back stronger. The Arabs go back into their corner, and the people who've been protesting will be systematically destroyed. The day after, if we get it right, the mothership of terrorism goes down. Hamas, the Houthis, Hezbollah, they've lost their biggest benefactor. Saudi, Israel is the most likely outcome. So I'll end with this. I've never seen a more consequential time in history as right now. If we can take this regime down through the people, their desires, not ours, and replace it with a friend, not a foe, be the biggest change in 1,000 years. If we don't get it right and we blink, it'll be the biggest change in 1,000 years in the wrong way.
Okay, Senator. And as President of the European Parliament, does the EU believe in these fighting words? You've just designated the IRGC as a terrorist organization. Iran has responded, saying it would cause, consider, all your armies terrorists. But it marks a shift for Europe. Where does Europe stand at this crucial moment?
We were mentioning timelines before. It's been 47 years, and that's as long as I've been alive, and that's as long as we've been asking for freedom in Iran. Now, what we saw in the beginning of the year, and that was the turning point, and for us in the European Parliament, it could have happened much earlier, ever since the protests we saw, 22, 23, when we saw the killings, but now everybody's on the street asking for freedom. And that is the departing point of everything we should do. And that is why we pushed across the board. There's very few things the European Parliament can align on or find unanimity on, but this was one of them. That if we're going to stand for the freedom in Iran, that we need to start, then we need to start by designating the IRGC as a terrorist organization. We needed all the European Union governments to accept, and they did. All 27 of them. I didn't think that would happen a few weeks ago, but it did, because that is the moment where you had the German Chancellor who said this is a regime that's on its last legs, when we see that this is a regime that has been not only oppressing its population, but sowing by its own instability in the whole region. And that is what we need to make sure. Senator Graham was talking that this is the red line we can't go beyond. That's the line that we can't go back on, where we can go back to even more, let's say, courage, confidence that Hezbollah or Hamas would get. And that would be the worst problem we could have as a European Union as well, because we're pretty close to that.
Karim Sajapur, you're a close student of the Iranian situation, and you're in Washington, so you know a little bit about what senators and others, the analysts and the experts, the policymakers are doing. President Trump, I think, evoked the Venezuela method recently. Now, to me, the Venezuela method decapitates the leader and leaves the regime in. How did you read it?
I think, Christian, that virtually everyone in Washington, including President Trump, if they could push a button and get rid of the Iranian regime, they absolutely would. What I think the Trump administration worries about is some of the fallout we saw in the aftermath of the Iraq War or Libya. And, you know, Iran is a different country than those places. But, you know, in my view, to understand this administration, probably a psychology degree is more valuable than a political science degree. And if we're trying to get inside the head of the president...
A good golf swing.
A good golf swing as well, which Senator Graham, I'm sure, has. But on 3 major occasions, this president gambled on Iran. In 2018, he left the nuclear deal. In 2020, he assassinated Qasem Soleimani. Last summer, he dropped 14 bunker busters on Iran's nuclear program. A lot of his own aides recommended against those policies. He feels that each of them were vindicated. And for that reason, I think he's much more likely to act than we are to reach a nuclear deal.
Senator, do you think it would be...
Who are you?
Do you think it would be a success or acceptable to get rid of the leadership a la Venezuela, but do a deal with the people who are in power? Trump is like that.
Right.
He does a deal with those people who are in power. He abandoned the Venezuelan human rights leader who won a Nobel Peace Prize. What are the Iranian Democrats meant to feel?
She's not the force to bring the country together. He believes that there are groups there that are going to go down a different road. If you're in charge of Venezuela now and you want to keep doing what Maduro did, you're an idiot. You're either going to get killed or go to jail. So, Iraq, we take everybody out. That didn't work well. Here's what you need to understand. The likelihood of getting worse than the Ayatollah in Iran is pretty low, don't you think, Crown Prince? I don't think most people are out in the streets saying, now we should be harder on us. Most people out in the streets said, I'm tired of living this way. I'm tired of being oppressed. I'm tired of having no money. I want a better country. I want my country back. I want this guy to go. The risk associated with the regime change is real. We have troops in the region. They have ballistic missiles, but we're still the United States. They have F-14s. A lot has changed since Top Gun 1. We have an incredible capability. I know who would win a conflict. How do you bring this regime down? I think you do go after the oppressors. Kill the ones who killed the people. Their economy is in tatters. They've been beaten pretty badly. They're as weak as they can be, but they're still dangerous. Compare that to doing nothing. So these are your choices. You either execute a plan, using military capability of the United States with Israel, working with people on the ground to bring the Ayatollah's regime down, or you do nothing but have talked. If the Ayatollah is still standing, Cristiano, when this is all over, it will be a disaster of generational proportions. He stood down the West. He did it yet again. And all the people who were on the fence will slowly be rounded up and killed over the coming years in Iran. Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis will get stronger, not weaker. The Arabs will continue to go back to their corner. I'm going to Israel, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia next week. Here's the message. If we can get it through diplomacy, fine, but we've had it with this regime. Think big. The people are the difference. When we started this debate, Crown Prince, the people had not spoken. They've spoken with their lives. How much more can they speak? They've been shot down on the street like dogs. These are the people you want to help. These are the people that will change history. So what I'm going to tell anybody that will listen in the Mideast, don't let this moment pass. Be smart, but don't be locked down with fear. And as to MBS and MBZ, knock it off, Saudi Arabia. Knock it off. I'm tired of this crap. MBZ is not a Zionist, and you're emboldening Iran by having this conflict. Now, I know they got differences in Yemen and they got differences in Sudan, but we got to think big picture. To any leader in the region that doesn't understand you're on the verge of history, history would judge you poorly because you are.
Senator, they've been telling the president not to do this. They don't want another war. They don't want another military intervention. How should we read that?
Have you ever
tell
been
me.
in the Mideast?
I have, yes, sir.
They say one thing, they do another. Here's what I want. I want them to step up to the plate because Iran wants three things to purify Islam. Sunni Islam will go if it were up to the Ayatollah. They want to destroy Israel and they want to kill us. We got a lot in common here.
Okay. On that note, what about the EU? Because this really is fighting talk. Okay. Do you prefer a negotiation over the nuclear issue, or do you prefer whatever it takes, including military intervention, for the end of the regime?
First of all, I've been asked this question, like, would you go back in time and redo what was done in terms of nuclear discussions? I think it would be wrong for us to go back and say what was done right, what was done wrong. The situation we are in now is that the time for this regime needs to end. How does it end? Are we talking about politically anointing? Are we talking about allowing for structures and frameworks to be created for the Iranian people to choose for themselves who should lead them? Who should be the one that takes them into the democracy that we've been working on for so many years? Now, the way we see it and how we've been looking at, and this is by us talking to communities in our countries, by us trying to making sure that when there was a technology blackout, they could not get contacted. That's where the European Union comes in. We're the #1 donors of humanitarian aid into making sure that we can help the people on the ground in order for a solution to be found. Now, would we prefer the diplomatic solution? I want to perhaps give a little bit of a sideline. I would certainly not do what was done this week by sending a congratulatory message to the regime saying happy anniversary and then call it routine diplomacy. I think the time for routine diplomacy is over.
Going out?
Well, I'll tell you after at the end of the program. But you know, I think it's really a situation where we in the democratic world coming together and say, how are we going to help Iranians be free? The way we do it is by the European Union, by Europe, the United States aligning on what they're going to do about a regime that has been oppressing a population for 47 years. And there you will find, and the Senator mentioned the Senate, I work with Congress a lot, you will find full alignment. No, it's a good thing. We like working with Congress. But I think my colleague Mike Johnson has a slightly more difficult job than me to create majorities, but he does that, and I have to do the same. But that is where you can find in all this discussion in Munich, where a lot of is being concentrated on the EU and US relationship. On this, there's alignment, and I think that should come out of this conference as well.
Just to keep us in the realm of current reality, the regime is still there. it has its methods, its state. Give us just a little bit of a reality check on what kind of support, if any, it still has, how it maintains. We know about the violence, we know about the repression, we've seen what happened when all these people came out, and how they were so brutally killed, injured, detained, etc. But there is a structure, and their raison d'etre has been regime survival for 47 years. How do you see it now and in the next few weeks and months?
You know, they say about dictatorships, Christian, that they always kill the most at the beginning and at the end. And I think we have entered the concluding era of the Islamic Republic, like the Soviet Union in the late 1980s. I describe them as a zombie regime. Dying ideology, dying leader, dying economy, dying legitimacy. They still do have lethal force. And I think what's going to be key to their survival is the unity of their security forces. They still have 150,000 plus Revolutionary Guardsmen. And I think, I would guess it has at most 15% popular support. And that's why your previous conversation was so critical, because 15% who are united can continue to kill en masse if the 85% remain divided.
And I know Reza Pahlavi is sitting in the audience, but I'm going to ask you, do you put your support behind Reza Pahlavi? Are you ready to say he is the person that the United States is, or you yourself, I don't know whether you speak on behalf of the United States, but as a senior Senate Republican?
No, because that's not my job. I've been with him on every cable TV show known to man. I'm very impressed with the way he can articulate what's at stake. I'm sure he'll have a prominent role in Iran. Don't make it too hard. All we can do is help Iran have a chance to be free. If they screw it up, they screw it up. I'd rather give them a chance than not, because I know what I'm getting with the Ayatollah. The difference is Trump, and he'll love hearing that, sort of. He's done something no other president did. He picked the people over the regime. We had the JCPO. That didn't work. Everything we've done, Europe, America, we've done a lousy job standing up for the Iranian people. You know, Gaza, a lot of people are protesting. Almost nobody's protesting for the Iranian people. But let me tell you what I think is going to happen here. I think Trump said three things that nobody else has said. And people are still fighting and still encouraged because of the president. They're getting weaker. We put tariffs on their oil. You had it is a zombie regime. You can't do business with Iran normally anymore. 25% tariff, you buy their oil. So it's going to collapse because the people have had it. And what happens next, I don't know, but I do know this. If we pull the plug on the people, whatever problems associated with the day after, if the people win against the Ayatollah, are a fraction of the problems associated with the Ayatollah killing his way out yet again, standing to murder another day. If you don't realize we're on the verge of history, you're missing a lot. We're talking weeks, not months. And when we do this, if we do, we're starting and we're not stopping.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.